Page 231 continued. Sit down, commanded the president. Don't interrupt. The Bombay mill owners are open to reason. It is no use precipitating a hopeless situation by hasty action. I stand for negotiation. There are thousands of unemployed men roaming the streets of Bombay, and we cannot go on strike without the sanction of the Indian National Congress, without the advice of the working committee. Congress or no Congress, we will not go on short work. Several voices broke out. Silence, shouted the president. I have known the methods of the labor people in Vilayat. What has made the English working class strong and solid but organization? There wasn't a trade union in India till I arrived. No one has ever heard of the name of such an organization, such a thing. End of page number 231. Now page 232. I have worked for you and I want you to take my advice and go the right way about it. The mill owners give you work. They are not your enemies. If they have declared you on short work, you must act in a sensible, organized way. The union works in your interest. It also works for the common interest of the employer and laborer. You must have faith in the union and the methods by which it brings about cooperation in industry between labor and capital. You must trust me and the executive committee. Brothers, shouted Sauda, suddenly ascending the platform and pushing the president aside. The members of the trade union executive committee are here. I am one. We will decide the question forthwith. Lala Onkarnath has too much faith in the mill owners. He says that the mill owners are not your enemies. You know that they are not your best friends. In fact, there is a world of difference between the mill owners, the exploiters, and you, the exploited. That is right. That is the right talk, some voices shouted. They are the robbers, the thieves, the brigands who live in palatial bungalows on the Malabar Hill on the money you earn for them with your work, continued Sauda. They eat 5 meals a day and issue forth to take the air in large Rolls Royces. You are the roofless, you are the riceless, spinners of cotton, weavers of thread, sweepers of dust and dirt. You are the workers, the laborers, the millions of unknown who crawl in and out of the factories every day. You are the coolies, black men who relieve yourselves on the ground. You are the miserable devils who live 20 a room in broken straw huts and stinking tenements. Your bones have no flesh, your souls have no life. You are clothed in tattered rags, and yet, my friend, Onkarnath says that your interest and the interests of the mill owners are the same. Shabash, shabash, Sauda Sahib, shouted Ratan. Munnu felt his blood stirring at the passion of Sauda's speech. Lala Onkarnath, began Sauda again, is a very rich man, and he has never seen the wily demon of poverty drag you through the murky waters of that hell where the scorpions of hunger bite you, where the leeches suck your blood away, where the big sharks devour you. But how many of you are not in the grip of the foreman of your factory? Against how many of you have not the hirelings of capitalism wreaked their vengeance? Brother Ratan there, an excellent workman, and others have recently been discharged without any fault on their part. End of page number 232. Now page 233. Except that they refuse to pay their foreman a commission. How many of you have not been pounced upon by the Pathan warder and moneylender outside the mill gates and even inside on payday? The moneylender does not want his capital back, you tell me, and is kind enough to let you pay interest. Don't you see that he records defaults so that the borrowing of a small sum leads in a few months to a permanent and heavy load of debt, till some of you have to pay him the whole of your wages and have nothing left over for your subsistence. And when the time comes that you can't pay either the capital or the interest because you have no pay, you go home to die of misery and hunger. Oh, when will you realize, when will you learn that for centuries you have been the victims of graft and exhaustion? Munnu stared hard at Sauda and pricked up his ears to listen to every word. There are only two kinds of people in the world, the rich and the poor, Sauda continued, and between the two there is no connection. The rich and the powerful, the magnificent and the glorious, whose opulence is built on robbery and theft and open warfare, are honored and admired by the whole world and by themselves. You, like the poor and the humble you, the meek and gentle wretches that you are, swindled out of your rights and broken in body and soul, you are respected by no one, and you do not respect yourselves. Munnu felt that long ago at Shamnagar he too had similar thoughts about the rich and the poor, but he could not say them like the Sauda Sahib. Stand up then, stand up for your rights, you ruthless wretches, stand up for justice, stand up, you frightened fools, stand up and fight, stand up and be the men that you were meant to be, and don't crawl back to the factories like the worms that you are. Stand up for life, or they will crush you and destroy you altogether. Stand up and follow me. From tomorrow you go on strike, and we will pay you to fight your battle with the employers. Now stand up and recite with me the charter of your demands. He paused for a moment. The whole throng rose to its feet, tense and excited. He continued, "We are human beings and not soulless machines." The crowd recited after him. "We want the right to work without having to pay bribes. We want clean houses to live in." End of page 233. Now page 234. "We want schools for our children and creches for our babies. We want to be skilled workers. We want to be saved from the clutches of the money lenders. We want a good wage and no mere subsistence allowed if we must go on short work. We want shorter hours. We want security so that the foreman cannot dismiss us suddenly. We want our organization to be recognized by law." The words of the charter rose across the horizon. At first they were simple, crude words rising with difficulty like the jagged, broken sing-song of children in a classroom. Then the hoarse throats of the throng strained to reverberate the rhythm of Sauda's gong notes, till the uncouth accents mingled in passionate cries, assassinating the sun on the margin of the sky. There was a shuffling of forms, the extended sound of black gaping mouths taking breath, even a reflection of half self-conscious, half happy smiles through the deep waters of the Coolie's eyes, and for a moment one could hear the soft, moist rustle of the sea breeze stirring the blades of grass across the fields and in the marshes. Then a screaming crescendo of pain shot through the air, through the edge of the crowd. The broken accents of a voice defined the words. "Kidnapped, kidnapped. Oh, my son has been kidnapped. What shall I do? This man tells me that my son has been kidnapped. Kidnapped, kidnapped." An undercurrent of voices surged through the tense crowd. "Kidnapped by the Pathan." A whisper rose. "Kidnapped. These bullying, swaggering Mussalmans are kidnapping Hindu children." There was a pause. "What is this?" shouted Sauda. "What is the matter there?" Only the moaning of a coolie could be heard, a queer, broken moaning like the howling of a she-hyena. "Kidnapped, kidnapped. A Hindu child has been kidnapped by the Mohammedans," some of the coolies reported. And then there was undertone of fear and hate. Go home, go home. It is only a base rumor spread by our enemies," shouted Sauda. "Don't go to work tomorrow. The trade union will pay you an allowance, and meet here tomorrow for a procession." "But a Hindu child has been kidnapped, Sahib. A Hindu child." A voice rose again. End of page number 234. Now page number 235. "Not only one but several Hindu children have been kidnapped," another voice declared. "Kidnapped, kidnapped. These circumcised Mohammedans have raised their heads to the sky. It is an insult to our religion. The sons of pigs, the illegally begotten, we will teach them a lesson. The rumors had now become defined. Go away, you fools, shouted Sauda. You will look into the matter. We will look into the matter. No, we will revenge ourselves on them. They take our money and they take our children. We will revenge ourselves on them. Shut up, you fools, shouted Ratan, jumping onto the dais. I will fight for you if your children have been kidnapped. But first go home and see if it is true. You black lentil eaters, you Hindus, we will teach you what it is to insult our religion. The shouts of some Mohammedans rose from the congested corner far away from the dais, where several hands had become engaged in pulling turbans off and striking blows. Munnu rushed up to Ratan and clung to his tunic, trembling. As he looked back, he saw that the crowd was swirling in tides upon tides of faces, to and fro, in utter panic of abandonment. He stood terrified and still, watching the rubbings of the hundreds of bodies, the pushings of the panting swarm that now pressed all around, crying loud and bitter oaths and abuses. It was sheer bedlam, only illuminated by the word kidnapped. He seemed suddenly to have forgotten the invigorating air of that song of the charter and felt engulfed in an uncertain atmosphere of destruction which the flourishing of arms, the glistening of eyes, the sharp hysteria of the voices had created. His soul swung back from the touching temper of Sauda's speech to face the pale monster of fear that the word kidnapped had suddenly conjured up. In the sentient, sentient quivering centers of his mind, this conflict summoned the uncertainty of that moment when Prabha had been arrested, and the two occasions seemed similar as he saw blue uniformed policemen flourishing their batons on the outskirts of the crowd. Kidnapped. His high, son of a pig, you heathen, take this one, the cries came. You go home, said Ratan to Munnu, and wresting his tunic from the boy's grasp, plunged headlong into the fray. End of page number 235. Now page 236. Oh Ratan, Munnu called, but his voice was lost in the pandemonium. He stood on the dais, still shouting for Ratan. Then he stared into the fast gathering darkness to distinguish the copper-colored faces with glistening white teeth, to see if he could find Hari. Who are you, a Hindu or a Mohammedan? A burly Pathan grunted, towering over him and flourishing a staff. Munnu was dumb for a moment, livid with the fear of impending death. He wanted to shout, but his mouth opened and he could not say anything. His eyes closed and then opened. He hesitated for the briefest second, then jumped to his right and heard the Pathan's staff crash on the dais. He tore through the crowd of rushing men, dodging his way till he was one of the many streams of coolies hurrying away from the Maidan. These Pathans have been kidnapping the children of the poor people for months, Munnu heard one coolie say to another as they hurried along. The mill owners instigate them and the Sarkar connives at all this, commented a third. Yes, another remarked. The Pathans have been kidnapping children and taking them away in motor cars, and the Sarkar is taking no measure to stop it. How can we leave our children about? But, said a trade union official, the Pathans are your enemies. 200 Pathans were used by the mill owners to break the strike on the oil mills last year. They have been undercutting the workers who go on strike. They should be taught a lesson. Let's go and demand an explanation from Sadiq Khan, the money lender in Albert Road, said a young coolie. He preens himself. Munnu was half inclined to offer to go with the coolie, but remembered the time when he had seen Hari beaten by the Pathan money lender. He passed by the men who cursed or cast sporadic comment on the kidnapping. At the head of his lane he saw an exchange of slaps and blows. He darted towards the dusty town road, getting under cover of anything that cast a shadow in the clear, pellucid 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 night which descended from the heavens like a woman, her apron ornamented by the stars, her deep sea green skirt spread protectively over the cruel hot earth. He knew a shortcut to Dhobi Talao, leading through a colony of outcasts. End of page number 236. Now page 237.